Everyone feels fear, but the difference is whether you have fear or if fear has you. One keeps you stuck, the other moves you forward. Today we're breaking down how to stop letting fear paralyze you and how to move forward and use it as fuel for growth. Let's go ahead and get to it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Success Spectrum Podcast. I'm your host, Kadeem McLean, and we are talking about that thing called fear. What if I told you that fear is not the enemy? Again, we can talk about you having fear versus fear having you, which we're going to break down a little bit in this episode for you. Fear is natural. It's a sign to your body that something is uncertain. There's uncertainty in front of you, or you're dealing with uncertainty in your surroundings, but it's not a sign to stop. It's a sign really to keep going. And we'll talk about why that is, but the issue, that being said, is not fear itself, it's paralysis. You feel fear and you don't move forward. That's where the problem comes in. But if you feel the fear and do it anyway, now you're courageous. Because we've talked about this before and you've heard people say this many times. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's feeling the fear and it's doing it anyway. That's what courage is. So think of it like a check engine light. You have a check engine light on your car that comes on. You don't throw out the car. You don't throw out the business plan. You don't throw out that challenge you were going to undertake. You adapt. You fix what needs to be fixed in the car when the check engine light comes on, and then you keep it moving forward. It's a signal that there's uncertainty and something needs to be checked. So when that check engine light comes on, how do you react? Reflect for a moment. How do you react when that check engine light comes on for you? When you feel the fear, what do you do? Do you stop? Do you stay stuck and stagnant like fear has you in a chokehold? Or do you feel it and you move forward anyway because you know on the other side of that fear is something we call growth? Let me give you some examples of when fear has you. And again, it kind of feels like it has you in a chokehold. That's what it feels like. You're unable to move forward. When fear has you, you feel like you might be in a job that you hate or really dislike, but you're scared to leave because you don't know what's on the other side. You want to launch a business, but as an entrepreneur, you've never really swam in these waters before. You don't know what is there for you. You feel like you're not ready, right? It's something new, so you haven't done it before, and you feel fear and you let it stop you and keep you stagnant. You let it paralyze you. You're constantly saying you're planning, but really you're just procrastinating. These are some examples of when fear has you. So in these situations, fear equals control because it's really controlling you and it's stopping you from moving forward. And you're stuck in more of a survival mode versus growth mode in this situation. Survival versus growth. You're feeling this fear and you're not really sure if you can move forward with it. So you kind of just say, here we are. It is what it is. I remember some examples when I had felt fear. Fear had me, I'll put it that way. And when I launched into business for the second time, my second business endeavor, I had some people in my circle, let's say, that I wanted to introduce to this thing that I was doing and get them on as a business partner so that we can build this beautiful thing together. However, fear had me, it had control. I hesitated, I procrastinated, I came up with a million excuses and what ifs, and I did not reach out to this person or these people. They ended up starting a similar business or starting with a similar business, and they are doing well for themselves, right? Or pretty well for themselves, I'll say. However, if I did not allow fear to have me and put me in that chokehold, I would have moved forward. I would have been a business partner with them, and we could have, again, grown this beautiful thing together. We could have been working together as business partners, but fear had me. What have you missed out on because fear has you? You're allowing it to keep you stagnant and stay in control and stay in that driver's seat. What are you missing out on because fear has you? On the flip side of that, if I allowed myself to take over the steering wheel and put fear in the back seat, I could have been in control. And that's when you have fear, not when fear has you. When you have fear, you acknowledge it, but you move forward anyway. Again, we talked about courage. When you have fear, fear becomes information as opposed to a limitation. Right? We can think back to hunter and gatherer days if we want to. And when we saw a lion, yeah, you feel some fear, right? If you don't, I question if there's something chemically going on, let's say. But nonetheless, when you see a lion, right, a tiger, a bear, whatever it might be, you feel a sense of fear. And that is a good thing because it lets you know, be cautious. It doesn't tell you to stop, but you move forward and be cautious. When you're in a new territory, a new environment, be a little cautious. You haven't been here before. You haven't treaded these waters or swam through these waters before. Be careful. But in all of what I'm saying, these words, I'm being very intentional in which words I'm using, because you're still moving forward. You're not sitting still. Being cautious, being careful, right? You're moving forward with these words or things and feelings, but you're moving, right? You're just being careful where you step. That's what that means. That's when you have fear. Skydivers. I'm sure I have not been skydiving yet. I hope to and plan to eventually. But skydivers, I'm sure they feel fear every single time they open that door in the plane or whatever it's called, and they look down and they see how high up they are. But guess what? They jump anyway. They still jump out of the plane. Entrepreneurs, we have to do the same exact thing. We feel the fear, but we do it anyway. We release that product. We release that service. We make that offer to that client, or we go ahead and reach out to that person to make that sales call or that sales opportunity, whatever it might be. As an entrepreneur, we have to do it anyway. Steve Harvey mentioned something similar to this many times. When you jump out of that plane, this is entrepreneurship. When you jump out of that plane, you don't need to necessarily make sure that the parachute's all good. No, we jump first and then we figure out the parachute on the way down. But it is almost I'm going to use air quotes here, a guarantee that we will figure it out on the way down. In one way or another, we'll figure it out. But we have to jump. We have to move, take action. Otherwise, we will not figure it out. Fear can ride with you, of course, as we've been saying here, but it should not be in the driver's seat. It could be, honestly, I don't even say the passenger seat. It should be in the back seat, right? You look in the rear view, you see it, you know it's there. That's cool. But you're moving forward and your focus is forward, so you don't see it, right? You're looking through the front windshields. You're not focused on the rear view. When you look at the rear view, yes, you'll see it. You'll see that fear, but you're focused on looking forward and going forward cautiously. See, fear is just proof that you're stretching. Fear is proof that you are stretching. We talked about the growth zone before. And to emphasize that, if you're not feeling fear, you're not really growing. If you're not feeling a sense of uneasiness, you're not really growing, because you're comfortable with where you are. And as soon as you step out of that comfort zone, that's what I call the growth zone. And when you're in that growth zone, now, you're going to feel a little bit uneasy. You're going to feel a little bit of fear. You're going to feel a little uncertainty. And that's when you know you're in that growth zone and say, whoa, this is something new. I haven't been here before. What do I do here? We'll figure it out. You just got to keep moving step by step, one step at a time. Now, fear is the price of admission for your next level. If you really want to get to another level, you really want to grow, you really want to achieve certain goals, you're going to have to go through some fear. You're going to feel some fear. But again, you have to have that fear. Don't let it have you. We talked about that next level. You're going to feel a level of resistance. And that's what fear is in this situation. When you're lifting weights, again, you feel resistance. If it's too light, you're not feeling any resistance. Guess what? You're not growing. Your muscles will not grow. You need to make sure there is enough resistance. That's why it's called resistance training, so that you can get some growth. Otherwise, what are we really doing? Wasting some time, let's say. As a subscriber to this podcast or a listener to this podcast, I want to give you $30. How am I going to do that? Enter Rakuten. Rakuten is a platform where you can find deals of the week. And on here, it doesn't matter if you're looking for clothes, doesn't matter if you're looking for electronics, services, food, you can get cash back. $30 cash back, rather 30%, 20%, 4%. You can get Dyson Yeti. I know a lot of us need to file our taxes. Those of us who are late, you can use Intuit TurboTax to file your taxes. Ancestry. There are deals upon deals on here. And here's how it's going to work. I refer you. You click the link in the description. You spend $30 on this platform. Guess what? We both get $30 back. Sounds like a win-win deal, doesn't it? Go ahead and click that link in the description and get yourself your $30. Let me give you some practical tools to take hold of this fear and take control of it versus it being in control. One of the things that I've realized in my life personally is you got to name it. What is it that you're afraid of? Write it down. What are you really afraid of? Because fear thrives on vagueness. When it's vague, when it's unknown, then it continues to grow. All right. We continue to feel it and feel like it's in control because we don't know what it is. But as soon as we name it, we gain a little bit of control and ownership over that fear. Shrink it. We want to make sure we can bring it down. So a question to help you with that is ask, what's the worst thing that could happen here? What is the worst case scenario? And most times that worst case scenario is either reversible or survivable. We can reverse it. We can go back. If you leave that job to go into entrepreneurship, not recommending anybody do that, then guess what? You can go back to that job likely, or find another job that's maybe better than where you were and allows you the flexibility to now grow your business part-time. Counter it. Recall past wins where you acted scared but succeeded. What I mean by that is you acted in spite of the fear or despite the fear, but you still succeeded because you acted anyway. So this will help you to counter it, to know, listen, I felt fear before. And when I felt fear, I acted anyway and I overcame that fear. An example for me with this, let's say, is I remember going through camp, right? Tim Hortons camps. So for anybody who's been listening, you know, I've been through the program. I mentioned it before, and that was a 5-year leadership program. And on that 5th year, we do something called the trust dive. And we're up high ropes and we're roped in, let's say, very safe. And you have a team of people on the ground holding you up. And you're on this little platform. There's 2 of you. You're on this little platform and you got to jump as far as you can and stretch to try to reach for this. I don't even know what it was, like a water floaty type thing. I don't know, but you jump in the air, you leap, and you're high up to try to reach for this thing. That's called the trust dive. And again, fear. I felt it, fear, right? Me and my person who was up there with me, my friend, both of us felt that fear. And however, we kind of talked to each other a little bit up there. We said, listen, we're going to do this thing. Because this was essentially the culmination of our 5 years that we spent with camp, our 5 summers. And it was to say this trust dive is basically reaching out for your next opportunity, for your next stage in life. And if we didn't jump, I knew in that moment I would have regretted that. If I didn't make that leap, I would have regretted it for the rest of my life because of why not? I'm roped in, it's safe. I got people on the ground holding me up. There's at least 5 to 8 people down there holding me up. And I'm a pretty light dude at the time. And what's the problem here? I had to make sure that I was in control of fear. I had to counter that fear and jump anyway. So same thing for you. And the last piece here is to take a step. Take the minimum viable step forward. Because when you take a step forward, you build momentum. And guess what? Momentum kills fear. Momentum kills fear. As long as you are moving forward, you will get closer to that fear that looked like a mountain and realize it's only a little anthill. It's only a little anthill. That's what you were afraid of. But once you name it, you shrink it, you counter it, and then you take those steps, you will realize how small and insignificant this fear really was. Some closing remarks for you here. Fear will always be present. The difference is whether you give it the keys and let fear be in control and drive that car, or you make it sit in the backseat. The first one, again, you give it the keys. That's fear having you. But when you have fear, you make it sit in the backseat because you're the one in control. You see the thing, you're not going to kick it out of the car per se, although it would be great too, right? Fast and Furious, ejecto-cedo. However, fear is going to ride with you either way. The question is, will it drive you or will you let it ride in the backseat while you focus on going forward and you have control of the wheel? That is the real question here. All right. So for anybody who this resonated with, drop a comment below, drop a car emoji or whatever it is in the comments. Let us know that this really helped. And I pray that it did. Share it out with somebody who you know is in a similar situation, who's maybe going through some challenges or going to a new stage in life, and they may be feeling a sense of fear, whether you know it or not, so that hopefully this can help them to overcome that stage and understand that they are in control. And it's up to them whether fear has control or they have control. And then they can move forward anyway. All right. And if you don't want to do this thing alone because you have a level of fear that you're not sure how to overcome, go ahead and look in the description. I have a link to my community, Freedom Hub, and where we can do this thing together. All right. Kadeem here, and I'll see you in the next one.